My name is Alina Hayes, and for as long as I can remember, my mother never missed a chance to remind me of my supposed worth. You have nothing, Alina. Nothing to your name. Those words weren't just scoldings, they were walls, built brick by brick around my confidence. I grew up believing every insult, shrinking a little more each time she called me useless, while hiding her own secrets behind carefully locked doors. But houses, like hearts, keep their own memory. Years later, when she was gone and the house finally fell silent, I came back, have to say goodbye, have to prove her right. That's when I heard it, a faint metallic rattle behind a wall panel, a whisper of something forbidden, a hidden key, a safe no one ever spoke about. I thought I had returned to an empty home. Instead, I was about to open the door to everything my mother swore I would never have, and the truth that would rewrite my entire life. The next morning, a gray light leaked through the broken blinds, bathing the hallway in a washed-out glow. I hadn't slept much. The key lay on the nightstand beside me, its rusted teeth catching the thin morning light like a quiet dare. Every time my eyes closed, I saw my mother's face, lips pressed tight, eyes glinting with the kind of secrets that rot inside a family. She had sworn there was nothing left for me in this house, yet the metal in my palm told a different story. I moved carefully, as though any sudden step might wake the past. The air was damp and cold, carrying the faint smell of rain seeping through old wood. Each room I passed felt like a chapter torn from a book I was never allowed to read. My mother's bedroom door stood half open, revealing a space that looked almost staged. Bed neatly made, curtains drawn, vanity mirror covered in a thin film of dust. I pushed the door wider, the hinges squealing like a warning. Inside, time had folded neatly around her possessions. Her perfume bottle sat half full, the liquid inside turned the color of amber. A stack of faded letters rested beneath a jewelry box, their edges curled as if they had tried to escape. I picked up one envelope, my breath catching when I recognized her handwriting. Sharp and deliberate, the way she carved her words into permanence. But the letter inside wasn't for me. It was addressed to someone I'd never heard of, a name I didn't recognize, but that tugged at a buried memory. I slid it back quickly, the paper crackling in protest. A sudden draft made the curtains sway. The soft movement revealed a faint discoloration on the wall behind the dresser. My pulse quickened. I set the key down and began dragging the heavy dresser inch by inch, the wood scraping across the floor in long, aching groans. Beneath it, the wall bore a strange outline, a rectangle slightly darker than the surrounding plaster. I pressed my fingers along the edge and felt the same hollow echo I'd discovered the night before. But there was no visible lock, no handle to grip, only silence. I traced the key across the surface, half expecting it to magnetize, to pull toward the hidden mechanism. Instead, it just scraped softly, leaving a faint metallic trail. Behind me, the old floorboards creaked with a sudden heaviness, as if someone had stepped inside the room. I spun around, heart pounding, but the doorway was empty. Only shadows stretched long across the floor, pooling like bark water. I forced myself to breathe. This house wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by truth. Whatever night settled over the house like a heavy curtain, and with it came a quiet that felt almost alive. The rain from earlier had stopped, leaving the windows slick and the air damp enough to taste. I sat on the floor of my mother's old bedroom, the key resting on my palm, its cold weight both comfort and challenge. I kept replaying the day's discoveries, the hidden panel, the letters to a stranger, the sense that every object in this house was an unsent message. My mother might have taken her voice to the grave, but she had left behind a language of secrets carved into wood, paper, and silence. The more I searched, the more I realized how carefully she had curated this place. Her dresser drawers were half full, as though she had left in a hurry but wanted me to believe she hadn't. Old receipts were stacked neatly inside a jewelry box, each one folded into perfect squares. Bank slips with redacted account numbers, grocery lists dated years apart, but written in the same precise hand. None of it made sense together, yet all of it hummed with intention. She wasn't careless. She wanted these things to be found, just not understood. I carried the letters to the living room and spread them across the coffee table, the paper glowing under the weak lamp. Most were addressed to the same name, E.M. Blackwell. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, but the tone was foreign, warm, even affectionate. "The plan is nearly ready," one line read. "When the time comes, she must never know until it's safe." My throat tightened. Who was she? Was it me, or someone else hidden in the folds of my mother's life? As I scanned the letters, a faint tapping sound broke the stillness. At first I thought it was the house settling, but the rhythm was too deliberate. 3 slow knocks, a pause, then 2 quick taps. My skin prickled. I followed the sound through the hallway toward the back of the house, each step echoing like a countdown. The tapping stopped at the old study door. The study had always been off limits. When I was a child, my mother kept it locked, claiming it was full of fragile things I would break. Now the door stood slightly ajar, the keyhole dark and inviting. I pushed it open and was met with the smell of old books and stale air. Dust swirled in the beam of my flashlight, revealing a room frozen in time. Papers. The photograph burned in my mind long after I left the study. My mother's smile, soft, unguarded, felt like a stranger's face wearing her skin. And the man beside her, his arm draped with casual intimacy, held a key identical to the one I had found. 2 keys, 2 keepers of a secret I was never meant to touch. I slipped my own key back into my pocket and forced myself to breathe. But the air inside the house had changed. It was thicker now, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I returned to the hallway, my footsteps sounding sharper than before. The floor groaned beneath me in a pattern I had never noticed, each creak echoing like a code. I crouched and pressed my ear to the floorboards, hearing a faint metallic vibration beneath the wood. The sound matched the rhythm of my heartbeat. Steady, defiant. Whatever my mother had hidden was more than a forgotten lockbox. This was an architecture of intention. The key in my pocket felt heavier with every step, its edges biting into my palm when I clenched it. I made my way to the dining room where the faint outline of the hidden panel still waited behind the cabinet. By now, I knew the house wasn't simply old. It was engineered to mislead. I dragged the cabinet aside again and studied the panel in the clearer afternoon light. A tiny indentation near the bottom caught my eye, a small, almost invisible circle etched into the plaster. I ran my thumb over it and felt the faint click of a mechanism shifting beneath the wall. Before I could press harder, a sudden vibration buzzed in my pocket. My phone, though I had no signal in this house, lit up with a single notification. Unknown key detected nearby. My stomach tightened. I hadn't brought any electronic trackers, and there was no Wi-Fi to trigger such an alert. The house wasn't just hiding something, it was responding. I backed away, scanning the room for any sign of movement. That's when I saw it. On the far wall, a second outline, smaller than the first, hidden behind a faded family portrait. I removed the frame, revealing the metal plate with a keyhole almost identical to the one on the padlocked filing cabinet in the study. My breath caught. 2 locks, 2 keys. But I only held one. The realization sent a cold shiver through me. Somewhere inside this house lay the second key, the twin to my discovery. My mother and the man in the photograph had each kept one, their pact sealed by metal and silence. If my key existed, his might still be here too, waiting or worse, watching. I slid the portrait aside and pressed my forehead against the cool plaster, trying to think. The safe, the letters, the photograph, all of it was connected. But without the storm returned that night, a slow-moving swell of thunder that rattled the windows and sent long shivers through the floorboards. I sat cross-legged in the center of the dining room, the key cold against my palm, the hidden panel looming like a silent adversary. Every crack of lightning briefly lit the room, and in those flashes, the outline in the walls seemed to pulse, as if the house itself were exhaling. My mother used to say storms cleanse the air. Tonight, it felt more like the house was warning me to leave. But I stayed. I pressed my ear against the plaster and listened. Beneath the rumble of thunder, a low hum vibrated through the wall. Steady, mechanical, alive. It was faint but unmistakable, like the slow breathing of something locked away. My heart raced in rhythm with the sound. The safe was not just an object. It was a presence, a sleeping beast behind the wall. Determined, I fetched a hammer from the old utility closet. The metal felt heavy and decisive in my grip. Each strike against the plaster sent shocks through my arms and sharp echoes down the hallway. Dust filled the air in gritty clouds, coating my tongue with the taste of old secrets. After several blows, a section of drywall gave way, revealing a square of steel embedded deep in the framework, a hidden compartment with a recessed handle and a narrow keyhole that shimmered faintly in the lightning's flicker. The safe was larger than I expected, its metal surface cold and damp. Beads of condensation rolled down its sides as if it were sweating under the pressure of what it held. I crouched closer, running my fingers along the seam. A faint vibration pulsed back, soft, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. I pressed the key forward, but something resisted, a tiny mechanism inside that refused to turn. The lock wanted more. My mother's plan was layered, and this was only the first step. Behind me, a sudden creak made me whirl around, hammer raised. The hallway was empty, but the front door swayed slightly on its hinges, though I had locked it hours ago. The storm howled outside, shaking the trees, and for a heartbeat I thought I saw a shadow flicker across the porch light. I held my breath until the next flash of lightning revealed only the empty porch. Still, the feeling of being watched clung to me like static. I turned back to the safe, forcing the key once more. This time, it slid in with a reluctant click, the mechanism unlocking with a slow, deliberate grind. I twisted, and a deep metallic groan filled the room. A sound so primal, it felt like the house itself was breathing out a secret it had carried for decades. The door remained sealed, but the resistance was weak.